Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the presentations for the Joint Henley and Harpsden Neighbourhood Plan Review. It's been known as the JHHNP Review. This is the third and final session this week. It is possible in the future that there may well be two more presentations, but these have yet to be agreed by the working group. I am Councillor Ken Arlett, and as Chairman of the Joint Henley and Harpsden Neighbourhood Plan Review Working Group, I will be chairing the meeting this evening. Town Council officers this evening will again be the Deputy Town Clerk and Planning and Project Manager, Kath Adams, and Planning Officer Jodie Rhymes, who is the lead officer of the Joint Henley and Harpsden Parish Council's review. The JHHNP Review Working Group chose ACOM Infrastructure and Environmental UK Limited to put forward site options and assessment as required. Over 40 sites were put forward, and over the 3 evenings this week, we will be looking at 10 presentations by landowners and developers. In tonight's presentations, we will be seeking information on why developers feel their application will be best suited for Henley and Harpsden. There will be no decision making this evening. If members of the public do not get the opportunity to ask their questions this evening, in the future there will be a 6-week consultation period, which will include presentations, hopefully on the top floor of the town hall. Unfortunately, this will all depend on where we are with COVID-19. Similar to the other 2 evenings this week, my aim is to split each presentation into 3 segments, 20 to 25 minutes for the presentation, 15 minutes for the working group members to ask questions or make statements, and the third part will be 15 minutes for the members of the public to ask questions or make statements. I will allow 1 minute for a question and 2 minutes for a statement. If time allows, then there will be more time for the working group to ask questions. I will not accept any derogatory comments on presentations, and I think I made that known yesterday. The presentations this evening will be the following: 6:30 p.m. Site 6, land at Reading Road, Harpsden Meadows. And the speakers I have down for that is Christopher Noons and Juliet Noble. 7:30, Site 2, Chiltern Centre off Grays Road, Henley. And the speaker I have for that will be Paul Barrett. 8:15, Site 1117, land east of A4155, known as Wyvale. The speaker for that will be Alex Hersham. And 9:15, we have Thames Farm. It's in the northeast corner, and the speaker for that will be someone called Les. I don't have his second name at this moment in time. Other than that, Kath, would you just like to mention about the live streaming?
Yes, this session is being live streamed. It will remain on YouTube for about a fortnight. If you'd rather not have your video on YouTube, then feel free to turn your camera off. Okay, thank you. Jodie, do you need to say anything on this one?
I just wanted to say that presentations might start up to 30 minutes earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Smoothly. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we go straight on to the first one, which is land at Reading Road, Harpsden Meadows, and the speakers, as I say, will be Christopher Noons and Juliet Noble. If you'd like to take over the screen, do your presentation, you're more than welcome to now, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So just bear with me 1 second.
Okay, no, we're in no rush.
So I'm just struggling somewhat to actually share the screen. Just bear with
That's
me.
okay.
Darling, yes? It says your battery is very low. Plug it.
Put the switch on below you.
Right, sorry about this.
It's all right.
For some reason it won't. It's not picking up my my screen. Just bear with me 1 second.
Will you be of any help, Kath?
I I can load it if it doesn't work.
So for some reason, it won't seem to load up.
Let me.
So you might, if, dear. Sorry about this.
Well, Jodie could see if she can find it. You should be permitted to share it.
It doesn't seem to want to let me, unfortunately. Let's go to that. So I'm just going to reopen it.
I can do it then if you want me to.
I probably think that might be best, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Just bear 1 second. Oh, I've got it. Hang on.
Okay.
It's done it this time. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Ah, good. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, just right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Shall I just crack on now?
Yeah, if you would do, please.
Yeah. Right, there we go. Right, my name's Christopher Nunes. For those who I haven't met, thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to present. I've been involved in this project for 3 or 4 years now, following an introduction to Juliet by her brother, who's a good friend of mine, who asked would I be interested in helping Juliet in actually delivering her vision for the site, on the basis that I've been a development manager for 30 years, I'm ashamed to say, and have been involved in projects such as this, but others as well, such as I do a lot of work for Royal Mail and NHS and the like. So I was obviously delighted to assist Juliet in delivering her vision, particularly when I heard what her thoughts would be. So if I hand over to Juliet now, and she can introduce herself and give some background to what her vision is for the site.
Hello, everyone. I thought I'd just outline how my family is connected to the Henley area and how I've ended up owning this patch of land. My great-great-grandfather moved to the area in the second half of the 19th century, buying Park Place, and the family lived there until it was sold after the Second World War. My grandparents then moved to Harpsden Court, which had been bought by my great-uncle Leonard Noble at the end of the 19th century. They lived there until my grandmother's death in the early 70s, at which point the house and grounds were sold. The field we're talking about was part of the Harpsden Court farm and was left to my sister and I. This field is therefore the last piece of land owned by the Noble family, and my feeling is that I've come by it by pure accident of birth and would like it to be used to benefit the local community in terms of building good quality housing for rent to key workers, and a large part of it to be open space accessible to all. Over the years, I've been approached numerous times by developers and have turned them down, but now feel it's time to do something with it. Chris Newens, who's giving this presentation, has done the legwork in talking to the local council and local housing associations, as he has a background in developing land, and I'll now hand back to him.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Juliet. Right, if I move on now, the background to the site, I think everybody probably knows where it is, but just in case and double check, obviously the site is circa 17 acres. All of it won't be developable, and I'll come on to the details of that in a moment. The site lies on the boundary of Harpsden and Henley, but it actually is situated in Harpsden, and its main access is off the Reading Road, and basically is south of the Waterman's allotments. So basically the opportunity is really to create community housing on the site to support key workers, which are residents of Harpsden and Henley, as well as the create public accessible recreational space for the community. Juliet's target is actually 100% community housing. So if we can deliver that, and obviously it's subject to finance, that is our target. And I don't see any reason why we can't deliver 100%. It may not be in one phase, and I'll come on to the phasing in a moment. But clearly, if we are producing community housing, it has to be managed. And what we're proposing, and have had a number of discussions, in fact 3 or 4 meetings with Henley Housing Trust to see if they would be willing to manage the properties if we were successful in completing them. And the principle has been agreed that they would be willing to. Obviously, the number of units that we could actually produce or deliver for the site probably would match what the sort of numbers they've got at the moment. But we've had discussions about how they would strengthen their management team, their sort of leases, sort of rents, etc. And ultimately, it's got to be a not-for-profit basis. So the key really of all this is to ensure that effectively the generous gift that Juliet is really proposing to make here, if the land does get allocated, is actually protected in perpetuity. Because at the moment, obviously, social housing in its true sense of the word is actually subject to right to buy, etc. And obviously we'd want to ensure that any housing that was delivered isn't actually subject to that. So we're probably favouring a trust structure, may actually be something of a, along the lines of a cooperative and community benefit society, which is a charity, benefits from the rights to reclaim VAT, which obviously in construction may be quite important, and have it managed by a board of trustees, maybe 5 or 6, which would be drawn from Henley and Harpsden, probably Henley Housing Trust, a member of the noble family, and other parties that could actually bring something to the table. So that's the principle of what is we're putting forward. And clearly, if we're successful, and part of being delivering a successful development is to ensure that you're a good neighbour. And obviously to do this, there is 2 levels of neighbour. There is the community, but also the immediate neighbours that adjoin the site. And clearly we need to ensure that their needs and requirements are met wherever we can. And we obviously will be looking to do quite a lot of community consultation. Clearly we need to ensure that what we are proposing is what is required in housing terms. But I think Julia has always been very strong on ensuring that we have a good quality product house for the community, and to ensure that the environment is of a good quality as well. And obviously we need to ensure that it's all deliverable, clearly, but it would probably form, one suggestion has been that it would probably form similar to some of the garden villages that sprung up at the beginning of the last century. So that may be something that we can discuss. But one thing that we can't do is probably deliver it in one phase. It's got to be a number of phases because the finance has to be raised. And I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Clearly, as the site is 17 acres, there's got to be a lot of landscaping, ecology, and public open space that Juliet's touched on needs to ensure that it meets the requirements of the community. It may be things such as, may not just be walking and access space, but it may be provide access to the adjoining wood. It may be running tracks and the like, but we would expect to be liaising again with the community, but also with English Nature to ensure that ecology goals are met. Clearly, the site is, as I think AECOM has already mentioned in their report, is actually subject to flooding. Interestingly, the 100-year flood and the 1,000-year flood is pretty much the same footprint. And on a macro level, it does occupy slightly more than half of the site. So we will need to do some detailed studies there, hydrology studies, etc., none of which, other than on a high level basis, we've completed to date. Access, obviously, from the site is going to be key. And I'll come on to the background to that further on in the presentation. But really, I suppose the big issue here is really finance. Juliet's gift, and if the site is actually allocated, will actually generate many millions of value. And it's that value that we would want to tap into and actually to fund the planning application and also the first phases of the development, with subsequent phases being funded through the income generated by rents. So that's sort of the basic proposals. So I'll just run through now the sort of outline. Obviously the site, the ownership of Juliet is obviously the 17 acres shown here. The flood zone, which we've basically high level marked up here as being the blue area, an open space, is somewhat, is quite a significant point. Now, a significant area of the site. This may actually change when we do the hydrology study. My experience is that when you do the detailed study, it actually, the flood area does reduce. But given that we are proposing the blue area not only to be the flood zone, and that's probably showing a 1,000-year flood zone there, we're looking to look at opening up the river or the stream or drain, I think actually is what the EA call it, which I believe is now running again since the new owner of Harpsden Hall has cleared the pond. But the open space and flood area, obviously, we see as being quite a significant benefit, and obviously can link into the wood to the north and potentially a pedestrian link into the centre of Henley. We've then got the issue of landscaping, and particularly dealing with those issues relating to the immediate neighbours. Clearly, there is a need to protect our neighbours from our proposals wherever we can, and we are proposing this landscape buffer that we've shown here in green, and then which leaves basically the access as being another issue that is significant for this site. Clearly, at the moment we front with the Reading Road. The other surrounding roads are probably, everybody would agree, they're not much more than single track lanes, which are inappropriate, we feel, for providing access to the proposed land and development. So we are looking to take all our access, the everyday, day-to-day access of the Reading Road, and providing these little accesses for pedestrians into the woodland, and potentially we will need emergency access and pedestrian access elsewhere than just off the Reading Road. This could be onto Harpsden Way, or it could be somewhere else. But these are our sort of high level proposals at the moment, and obviously will be subject to traffic impact studies, local liaison, etc. This basically then leaves the yellow area as our developable area, which is rather small in comparison to the overall. But we suspect this will be delivered in, could be 4 phases, it could be 2 phases, it could be 6 phases. But in principle, this is the ideas that we have at the moment, and we would work into the site as with each development being approximately 10 to 15 units, depending obviously on what the demand is, where it may be flats, it may be retirement homes, it may be family units. But we don't really know where the demand is until we've actually done the housing impact and spoken to the support network that will benefit Harpsden and Henley, such as teachers, the NHS facilities in the town, etc. So in principle, basically, in summary, really, the opportunities are, it's just that it's a permanent and lasting legacy for the community of Harpsden and Henley, with open space, housing, etc. It obviously is homes for in-work locals in perpetuity that are safeguarded against Help to Buy. They're proactively managed by a local provider, and obviously they're going to be let at rents that are relevant to local incomes and are truly affordable. And I think it really is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And that really concludes the presentation. There's a couple of old slides here that I took out of the Noble Family album when they had time. Henley and Harpsden. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Christopher, if we could have our screen back then, please.
You can, yeah. There we go.
Right, who would like to speak to? And I think I should take just before you're done, I think I should take kind of Kester first if he wishes to ask any questions.
To Christopher Nunes for his presentation. I must say I am left in a considerable quandary about the finance. He says the big issue is finance. It just doesn't seem to me to add up, nor does he seem yet to have got to grips with practical problems. Is he aware, for instance, that the flooding is likely to increase following the changes to drainage along Harpsden Valley? The County Council have piped more water through the grounds of Harpsden Court, and they will need to reinforce the little humpback bridge over Sheep House Lane to allow for the extra flow of water across the field we're talking about. Christopher Nunes mentioned his hope of making something of the river. I think that could be, whether or not desirable, an extremely expensive business, and how social housing would pay for it is not clear. This is, of course, a statement rather than a question, but I will leave a question. Access onto the Reading Road. Have you had any talks with anyone about that?
We have spoken to a highways engineer that has done a high level assessment, and he believes he can facilitate and agree with the Highways Authority access of there, subject to obviously agreement of the brief for a traffic impact study.
Despite the flooding going down in that direction, so that you'd presumably be crossing the flooding, you'd need a bridge or some
Quite
structure.
right. Quite right.
Thank you.
Okay. Donna Crook.
Thank you. Can I start by thanking Juliet for your kind gift for people to have social housing, because we really would love more landowners like you, and that's really kind of you. And have you spoken to the Henley Housing Trust about this?
I think, could we just leave that out of the equation for the moment? Well, the simple answer is yes, but could we not go into any detail on that at the moment, please?
Also, like, because there is badly needed social housing, and yeah, I forget what I was going to say now. Yeah, just really glad about it's being kept for social housing, because some people, there is a slight snobbery about when people say, oh, social housing, you know, but it was like what I was saying, there isn't enough for people to live in that haven't gone to university, so we need more of this. And yeah, I've got what I was going to say, but that was about it.
Okay. You can always come back later, Donna. Who else from the working group would like to speak? Patrick Fleming.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for the presentation, and I think it's a fantastic idea, the concept of it. Obviously, I echo Kester's concern. I think it would be good to investigate further the finance and come with a plan that would show that this potentially would be deliverable, because just thinking, I mean, at the moment with interest rates low, I guess you can mortgage, but if the land is tied up in a trust, it may then have actually no market value. So, you know, it would be good for us to have some more idea about that. The only other point I'd like to make is I think it's wonderful, the landscaping, if you can bring that round to the Spinney and tie in with that as a wildlife zone, that would be fantastic, because that would then take us down into the Harpsden Valley with a wildlife bridge, which would be much, you know, great benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that as a statement, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else wish to, sorry, Lawrence.
Yeah, probably a statement again, but yeah, as much as I, you know, agree with the fellow councillors, Kester and Patrick's questions on finances, I think, you know, this is such an incredible opportunity. It's something that we've, you know, discussed and talked about for, you know, years, and only discussed last night. Wouldn't it be so incredible to have a piece of land that something like this could be done on? You know, finances are never unachievable, as it were. And I think, like we were discussing last night, if we could, you know, choose and select a site like this on the prerequisite that it was going to be 100% social, rather than, you know, affordable housing, or truly affordable, as Mr. Newnham clearly said, then I think it's something that we should throw not only our weight behind, but SODC's and OCC's weight behind, and any other experts that we, you know, such as, you know, Alan, who's, you know, on the screen now, and any other experts locally who can help this be achieved. It's an amazing opportunity, thanks to the kindness of, you know, Mrs. Noble and her family. And I think, you know, if we can get behind it, God, like if we missed an opportunity like this, I'd certainly not sleep on it. But yeah, thank you very much, and a very useful presentation. Yes, there's a lot of details still to be niggled out, but those as always can be achieved. You know, that can be done in time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the working group? Michelle Thomas.
Yes, I would just like to make a statement. Like the presentation, the first presentation that we had yesterday, this particular plot has come up as red on the ACOM report. However, with the philanthropic intentions of the Noble family, I would hope that all issues can be overcome, because, like my colleagues have said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I don't think I should express, perhaps in, personal sentiments, but I do hope that these can be overcome. Thank you.
Okay. I can't see anybody else from the working group. Could I, Matthew Phillips or Sarah Langton, would you like to speak next? Matthew?
Sorry, yes, please. I do have a quick question. I think I'm hugely in favour of truly affordable housing, and I think we are desperately short of it in Henley, and I think this is a fantastic idea. My concern is that once, if this were to go ahead, what are the guarantees that it will truly be sociable, affordable housing? And as we've seen in other areas, the requirements around planning change and the intentions change.
Shall I respond to that?
Yeah, if you could, Christopher.
It's obviously Juliet's land, and you've heard her personally say that she is committed to actually provide community homes for Henley and Harpsden, and I'm sure that she would be willing to, and hopefully she'll confirm this, willing to enter into an agreement of some sort that actually does bind the land for that purpose, as well as open space, etc. We have actually had a number of discussions, obviously, with other parties who could assist us in building the site out. But Juliet has basically said, I want to target 100% community housing. So hopefully that gives you some comfort, but ultimately I'm sure that Juliet will be willing to enter into an agreement to ensure that a goodwill agreement to ensure that it does happen.
I don't know what else I can say apart from I would. But
yeah, I mean, it's.
You've no reason to trust me, but I would do it.
I think, I would like, I hope, there is absolutely trust involved in these things, and I think that's critical. But I think maybe sort of bitter experience suggests that circumstances can change, and maybe it would be better safeguarded with some sort of legal agreement around it. But that's a future discussion, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'd be quite happy to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Sarah Langton, would you like to speak at all? When you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted now. I was going to raise the question that Matt's just raised. So if it's going to be community housing, social housing, which is distinct from affordable housing, I believe, then that's something to be supported. I'm slightly concerned that it's in that gap between Harpsden and Henley that we're trying to preserve. But no, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you. Right, let's go. Sorry, Jackie Walker. Sorry, Jackie.
Yes, sorry, I didn't come in before because I want to say thank you for the presentation, but sorry I wasn't able to join early enough to see most of it. But I'd like to say I'm a big champion of housing available for social rent, and I would really like to put a voice of support there, and that in terms of the financing, if you have this housing in perpetuity, can't say that word properly. Perpetuity, thank you, Ken. Then it's an ongoing investment. It's a different way of doing the finances and taking into account the right to buy of council housing. We have a huge shortage of stock of housing of that kind. So this would really help. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do I take that as a statement?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'll open it up to anybody else that wishes to speak, ask a question.
Kester wants to speak.
Councillor Gabashak, I knew he'd come forward,
Kester looks pretty keen.
even though he's still a bit blurred. Yeah, okay.
Right, hello, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. As you will gather on the last few nights, I've talked about social rental in a big way. Can I just ask a question on the 100% guarantee of social rental? Because there was another phrase that came in, Christopher, to your presentation about a care home.
Yeah.
And of course, care homes are the most profitable wing of the market. So would you be envisaging that the care home would be 100% social rental? And also, do you have any vision for the density of this site? In other words, would the buildings be 1-story, 2-story, or in the case of a care home, 3-story? That's my first question. I have a supplementary one after that, Ken, if you will allow me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
let's take that one first, otherwise I get confused with two.
With regards to the care home, if I mentioned care home, that is, if there is a need for a care home, then obviously that will come out in the housing need. That if I mentioned it, it wasn't an intent to mention it. It was more retirement type. So, for instance, there are in our discussions with the management, the Henley Housing Trust, they said a number of their tenants came from tied properties and therefore needed to be rehomed when they retired. So it is a slight difference between retirement, so alms houses types, than actually a care home. So we're not proposing a care home. It's all about what the community needs, and potentially, and in my experience of many communities, the facilities for people to downsize and live independently in the type of alms house is actually in great need, and often is overlooked. But I think
Donald, yeah, sorry, Donald, I can see you. Just put your hand in. I've got you on the list. Okay, sorry, carry on, Christopher.
I think it's important that ultimately that any housing to be successful has to have a mix of occupiers, and just to have one section of society doesn't normally work out well.
But are you saying that the mix would include homes that would be sold? Because obviously a mix of the whole society is social rental right the way up to 5-bedroom houses. Are you excluding that from it? It will be 100% social rental on this site. That's what I'm trying to get a definitive answer on.
I can't give you an absolute definitive. That is the target that we're working on. The issue of finance has been raised. Now, if this site gets allocated, as with any other site, the money that is generated by allocating this site will be many millions of pounds. And Juliet is foregoing that and saying, I will use that to develop out community housing on the site, and she's targeting 100%. If we have to sell a couple of plots for, say, self-build to assist in the financing of this, we can't rule that out. But Juliet has said to me many times, I want 100% social community housing on this site. and that will be safeguarded in part potentially by transferring the land into this trust, and there'll be potentially councillors from Harpsden, Henley Housing Trust, etc., as the management board, and it will be for them to decide what is right and what is wrong. This is not going to be a commercial development.
Thank you, Christopher. Supplementary is that so just to say, which is a statement actually. So there is I applaud what you're trying to achieve, but I'm not a member of the neighbourhood planning group, and they will look into detail in this. Of course they will, but there is a caveat on the 100% social rental. Can I move on to my second question, which is this? This site is the ACOM study has said that this site is problematic in a number of areas, in terms of the natural beauty of the area and in terms of flood zone 3. And if you are going to pop a road over flood zone 3, it would need to be raised, heavy engineering, more expense, whatever. Now, if that happens with more expense, it means there will be more pressure to allocate more building sites on this land for sale. So really, my question is this. The ACOM study is very clear that this site is not good. How do you intend to overcome the questions, the many questions that have been raised by the ACOM study? Thank you. And that's my last question, Ken. So
okay, thank you.
Well, in respect of the flood, I've mentioned that dealing with the hydrology of the site is clearly key, and that is the principal concern that came out in the ACOM report. My experience over 30 years of when you actually look into the hydrology of sites is that the macro level is invariably reduced when you get into the detail of it, because it's by its nature, it is a broad brush assessment that is done by the EA. With regards to but we still have to actually deal with it. And clearly, the site is, we've allocated 60% of the site already, which is effectively all the area that the macro study has identified as being for the flood zone. Yes, we will have to cross the flood zone to actually get in, but that will not require heavy engineering. And one's always got to remember is that the Reading Road is in that flood zone as well. So ultimately, with the area that we've got and opening up the watercourse there, that will alter the levels within the site, which actually could potentially deal as a area to contain the water. So there are plenty of ways of obviously dealing with it. And yes, any site that is coming forward at the moment for development will actually have its problems and have its costs in abnormals to deal with. But I think, I don't know how we can actually further satisfy you in respect of the target and the will to actually make this 100% community housing. You know, the land at the moment is probably worth somewhere in the region of 20 to 30,000 an acre. If it gets allocated, you're talking probably 10 times that. And Juliet is willing to give that to Henley and Harpsden. I don't think you'll ever beat that offer, but you know, so I do think it's a once in a lifetime, and there may be compromises that have to be made, but it is not going to be the intent of Juliet to make those compromises. The compromises will be made by the trustees who will hold the land, and that will involve both the parties that I've already mentioned.
Thank you, Chris.
Could I? No, you finished. You said you had two questions, Stefan. Could I just mention where you raised the ACON report? And there is a caveat actually in the ACON report on the last paragraph, which says the site may be suitable should the emerging plan become adopted policy. See paragraph 1.16 of the main report. And I did mention this the other night on one of the other presentations. And basically what that says, if there are insufficient homes to be found within the boundary of Henley, one could look then without the other side of its boundaries. So I think you'll find that in the local plan that is coming forward, the district council local plan. Now I'm not saying if I'm supporting for or against it this evening, but I think to just put the other side of the coin what the ACON report said, it doesn't exactly say you can't build on it. Donna, you wanted to ask another question.
No, what it is my family lived in a trust house. My mum was born in a trust house and she died in a trust house. So I know how the Henley Housing Trust works. And what they do, they have like bungalows for the old people so that they could then move out into the larger houses, because they have a real shortage of houses for elderly people. And that's why they've been buying houses and converting them into flats in other parts of Henley. And this would be good because then they could free up some of the other houses so that the families can live in them. And it all has a knock-on effect and it's all for the good. So I fully trust the Henley Housing Trust in what they're going to do. And it will be a mix. I do think that they'll be well built.
Donna, can I just stop you there? We're not talking about the Henley Housing Trust taking over this development if it was to take place. There's just conversations have taken place, but it's not to say that they would take it over. Nothing's been discussed with them.
I'm trying to reassure some people, because they build bungalows and they're very mindful of things just to reassure people, so it's not going to be like a...
All right, thank you for the comment.
Kester wants to speak, I think.
Where are you, Kester? Yeah, there you go. Okay, Kester.
Would the proponents of this scheme be interested in a less controversial site? I mean, supposing the committee could point them towards a site, a brownfield site owned by the county council and ready for development, would they be interested in putting their scheme on that site, which would be cheaper and avoid the very severe difficulties already sketched out?
Could you explain where that site is?
Chiltern Edge.
Chiltern Edge?
Hmm.
Chiltern Edge is not in the Henley and Harpsden neighbourhood plan.
Chiltern End.
I think
Chiltern Edge. You said Chiltern Edge.
Oh, well, perhaps I got the name wrong, but the one we would...
Oh, off Grays Road.
Chiltern's End.
Yes.
Okay. Chiltern's End.
End, not edge.
End. Ah, yes.
Sorry, who would purchase the land, Kester?
Well, I mean, I hadn't thought of that, but if finance is available for this scheme, which would face very considerable expense in getting going, why not put it on this much easier site where it would be very much welcomed instead of raising difficulties for many people?
Do both.
We stick to what's at hand.
Sorry, Patrick.
Carrying on from your comment, Ken. This is a statement. This site and this scheme, as outlined, would freeze this land and give us at least 50, if not 60% of it as a green area just on the corner of Sheep House Lane. And I think the danger of transferring the houses somewhere else is that leaves the land for whatever development in the future. I think this is This has the benefit of both serving the community with the housing that we really need, and also providing a really lovely landscape development just at the corner of the lane where we want it, and therefore preventing any further development of that land. I see it as a once in a lifetime. Thank you.
Okay. But David Lloyd, do you wish to speak?
No, I'm just a interested observer at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, would you like to speak? Catherine Notaras.
Yes. I have one observation, that if you look at the other end of Reading Road and you have access through the Harpsden Road end entrance, that your problems might be solved. What do you think, Christopher?
As far as access is concerned?
Yes, of course, yes.
Well, I suspect that that could be a possibility. It is something that we shied away from due to the impact on the neighbours and on Harpsden.
I can understand that.
And so we want to be a good neighbour.
Of course.
And that's why we went with the solution that we have put forward. But ultimately, we will canvass. The idea is, I think it's important to say that we are not the developers. We're not here to make money. We're not here to actually upset anybody. We're here to actually to make the most of what I think is an incredibly generous gift to Henley and Harpsden. So we want to work with the community. We're not talking about building, 80 and 90 units here. We're probably talking, 40 or maybe 60 units, but they are in line with, and they won't all come in on day one. I suspect it will be a 10 or 15 year development period. But who knows? It's all about working with the allocation of the profit that is not going into anybody's pocket. It's going into the pocket of the Henley and Harpsden people. Basically, as I said, I've mentioned 10 times increase in land. It's not going to be 10 times. It's probably going to be 100 times. It's 20 or 30,000 an acre. Probably goes to 2 million an acre. And Julia is offering to give that to Henley and Harpsden. And I don't know if I can say very much more, but we want to be good neighbours. We want to do the right thing. We want to ensure that the ecology and the woodland, etc., public access, etc., is all done in the right way, so we minimise the impact of this development on the community.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, did you want to ask another question?
Yeah, just quickly, again, just to reiterate, I think the fact that we're talking about, truly social housing is fantastic. The question I want to raise is that one of the chief tenets of the Henley Harpsden Joint Neighbourhood Plan is to maintain these as two separate areas. This obviously sits right on the cusp between the two, and actually sits, from your description, sits within Harpsden. Effectively, this will be joining Harpsden, by a residential development to Henley. Is that, is that acceptable? And is that, is not acceptable, that's not the right word. Does that work in line with, one of these principles that we have in place, or you have in place?
Sorry, who's the question to?
I guess it's to Christopher.
Well, clearly, the site does lie in Harpsden, and clearly there is an infill of part of the land. Now, if We've obviously set the development back right off the Reading Road to ensure that visually from the main road there isn't any connection. Clearly, if that was if that became an issue that we had to address, we could maintain some land all the way through to the corner of the site, but clearly that would actually impact on the number of houses that we would be able to deliver. But if it was a requirement, then clearly we would take that on board to maintain that boundary between the two parishes.
Jodie, I haven't asked you that, I apologise. Is there any comments you would like to make?
Well, quite a lot of it's obviously already been asked. I think the most important things in my point of view is to address the concerns from the ACON report. So if you could provide further technical reports around the flood risk assessment and landscape and visual impact assessment to try and address those concerns. Obviously, the flood risk area going directly through the site, that dramatically reduces the amount of developable area. So one of the key things I'm kind of concerned about is in terms of the density of the scheme and how many we can actually fit on that site. So the design and layout would be very important with this site in terms of reducing the impact on the landscape and, you say, the wider community. So working together to try and look at potential proposals would be helpful. It's really a statement rather than a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to ask a question? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this one up.
Could I just answer a question you made, Chairman?
You're going to answer my question?
Yes.
Go for it.
You asked how the proponents of the scheme might raise money.
Yeah.
There are several residents of Harpsden who are very keen to buy this plot, and not for development, but to safeguard it as green belt between Henley and Harpsden, and that would raise a good sum towards a site for putting their otherwise admirable scheme into effect.
So basically what you're saying, if we could get a figure to buy Chiltern's End, you think the people in Harpsden would pay that amount?
Well, I don't know exactly what amount the county council's looking for, but I think it's worth looking into, because I think it would be a much better solution.
Would you have a view on that, Christopher or Juliet, or not?
Juliet, do you want? Have you got a view that you want to air?
I haven't got a view. I'd need to think about that.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I imagine Chiltern's End or whatever would be, if it's going for planning, would be a lot of money.
Mm.
So I guess Harpsden residents would just have to have very deep pockets if that was going to be the case.
Well, all three of them are smiling anyway.
I think any land with development approval in Henley will be millions per acre, and even if Juliet chose to sell her ownership without the benefit of any planning consent, it wouldn't even scratch the surface. It's actually the value of the allocation that generates the money to actually fund the scheme.
Ken, sorry.
Interesting point. Yeah, Stefan.
Stefan, County Council of Henley. I mean, the Chiltern site has been talked about between £5 and £10 million, if I can give you a steer on the price we would be looking at. A lot of money.
Okay. Donna, last one.
Yeah, Who's not to say that the people that buy this land, then maybe in about 5-10 years' time, those people that have bought it, then don't sell it on to a developer? What might happen? Maybe they die. Maybe the people that buy it pass away. And
or
then
maybe they would give it to Harpsden Hall Trust to run for the benefit of locals.
They may not. And then
Okay, okay. It's a good point, Donna, actually, but I hear Kester's answer. Right, I'm going to wrap this one up now. Thanks for the presentation, Christopher and Juliet. I think it was quite a surprise to a few people this evening, myself as well. And we look forward to carry on communication over the next 3 or 4 months. And it's up to the working group eventually to come up with a solution to all these presentations. But it's been some excellent presentations over the last 3 nights. So thank you very much for sharing your scheme with us this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much.
Goodbye.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, well, yes.
Okay. Paul, are you just going to do the presentation on your own?
I am indeed, yes. I have circulated a paper to Jodie, which I think she will have passed to you, yes?
Yeah.
Well, that really sums up our position, but I will reiterate.
Well, okay, well, hold on, it's just a question. Let's hold on a minute first.
Yep.
Jodie, can you put that, did everybody get a copy of the attachment that Paul's talking about? Because if they didn't, I think we should kind of share that with them, Paul. Have you got that, Jodie? Could you put that on the screen? And then perhaps you can talk to it, Paul.
No, I can talk to it.
Hold on, we haven't got it on the screen yet. And I haven't had time to read it. I didn't get in till late this evening, so I haven't read it.
It doesn't matter. You can read it afterwards. I will go through what I thought was a magnificent alignment of the planets in favour of our proposal to include the Chiltern Centre site in the joint Harpsden and Henley neighbourhood plan. Thank you, Jodie. There it is. I think we can skip the background. What I really want to make the point is that we have a unique window of opportunity when a number of elements have come together to make it possible, if you agree, for the Chiltern Centre to provide 3 houses for the neighbourhood plan and at the same time move to a modern purpose-built facility on the Highland Park site. Now, the reason that this is possible is really down to what you were just discussing, which is the Chiltern End proposal, I think, because I think the Chiltern Centre site on its own is probably of limited interest to a developer. But there's always been a symbiotic relationship between the Chiltern Centre site and Chiltern's End Close. As some of you will know, the Chiltern Centre site started life as staff accommodation for the Old People's Home. And now that the Old People's Home site is coming up for sale and for potential development of 28 housing units, as I understand it, it would seem that if that goes ahead, the Chiltern Centre site will be the only non-residential site left in Chiltern's End Close. And from our point of view, we have a building that is now getting older and more expensive to maintain. And if we have the opportunity to relocate, as we appear to have, that makes sense to us. And therefore, we need a number of elements to come into place. The first thing, of course, is to have development on the site and to have your permission to develop the site for housing. Then we have to find a developer and we have to sell that site for the maximum we can get. Well, on the first point, we have enlisted the potential help of Savills. They are prepared to help us market the site. We have an estimate that the site is worth a minimum of £1 million, and we are confident that we will be able to achieve that figure. But the third thing is, where do we go? And here we are fortunate that we have managed to strike a partnership with Crest Nicholson, and Crest Nicholson have agreed to donate land as as part of their northern development of the Highland Park site, which I think they hope will also involve about 50 houses. So we have already got some preliminary plans from a pro bono architect, which I can make available to the committee if they are interested, although maybe premature at this point in time, because we're only talking about the inclusion of the Chiltern Centre site in the plan. The other, as you can see, we believe that the proposal is viable because we have alignment with the sale of the Chiltern End Close site, with partnership with Crest Nicholson to provide a new purpose-built facility on land they will donate. And we have an architect and we have an estate agent with us. The only problem that we have is that we will obviously need to launch an appeal to raise the amount we will need to build the new facility. But we believe that we can do that and that it is completely doable, even within the constraints of the present COVID pandemic. The other problem we have is that when we purchased the property in 2005, Oxfordshire County Council insisted on us signing an overage agreement with them, whereby any capital gain we made from eventually selling the site would have to go to them in the amount of 75% of the gain in the event that we walked away with the money in our pockets, and 50% if we were prepared to reinvest in a new respite care facility, which of course we are prepared to do. That agreement expires in 2027, but we would hope that we could get some relief from the appeal from the original conditions that they laid down, or the council laid down in 2005. So to sum up, really it's quite simple. What is the benefit to Henley? The benefit is that you will get 3 houses as part of the quota that you're seeking to meet, and the South Oxfordshire and Henley would get the benefit of a state-of-the-art modern respite care facility.
Is that it? Yeah, finished?
Yep.
Okay.
I invite your questions.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. Lawrence Plant.
Sorry, I may have misheard. So Crest Nicholson are donating the land, but not the building. So they'll give you the plot of land. You have to then build the building with the proceeds from selling the current site, to which you're hoping to get $1 million. That's question number one. And then second question would be, what was the original value? So what was the original cost that you then have an overage on at the moment? So if it sells for $1 million, how much of that do you actually have to split with SODC?
Not with SODC, with Oxfordshire County Council. Well, we paid way back in 2005, £345,000 for the site. So on the assumption that we got $1 million, we would have to give half of that gain to Oxfordshire County Council. But that's a debate for another day, actually. I mean, we will negotiate that separately. As far as your first question goes, Crest Nicholson have agreed to donate the land. We are in partnership with them, so that may or may not be the end of their assistance to us. I can't really put words into their mouths, but it's possible that they may end up building the new facility.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who's next? Not too many, not too many people. Stefan.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get off mute. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Paul, for your wonderful presentation. And I should declare an interest as an ex-trustee of the Chiltern Centre. Thank you for the magnificent job that you do. And you're absolutely right. You are you're due for new and better facilities going forward. Could I ask sort of one fundamental question, though? There is a linkage between the allocation of the new Crest Nicholson site and your move to it. Have Crest Nicholson offered you a site on their existing site if the Neighbourhood Plan Committee so decided not to allocate the new northern site?
No, we haven't discussed that possibility.
Maybe they should.
So therefore, we are talking about two sites here. We're talking about the allocation of the northern site for Crest Nicholson and the relocation, quite rightly, in a way for you, to actually provide you with your wonderful new facilities, which to a certain extent, Henley deserves, because you do a magnificent job for Henley.
Well, thank you for that compliment. Let me say in return that I think the Chiltern Centre, over the 17 years we've been in existence, has always recognised the wonderful support we have had from Henley Town Council. You were our first mortgagor. We got our first mortgage, which enabled us to purchase the site in the first place, thanks to a £100,000 mortgage, which you granted. And I think you all do a great job for Henley as councillors. So, you know,
carry on, Paul. Don't stop.
I think that's the wonderful thing about Henley. We've got a lot of great people who do a lot for the town.
Yeah.
And
you've got another 20 minutes.
Well, it's absolutely true. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to take sensible decisions. My only fear is that a lot of these sensible decisions are then rescinded or overridden by the local authorities who sit above you. But you can only do what's best in your eyes for the community.
Yeah.
I do think that from our perspective, the best thing that Henley Town Council Planning Committee can do is to include us in the neighbourhood plan and to hopefully include Crest Nicholson's northern project as well, because obviously they have aligned with us because they think it will sweeten the opportunity of their project being accepted, and equally we're not looking a gift horse in the mouth. If anybody else wants to offer us a land site, we'd be very interested, but I think the one that they have on offer is difficult to beat.
Thank you.
We know one that might flood.
Sorry?
We know a site that might flood.
Site might flood.
I was almost going to say that myself. Well done. What I would say, Paul, to be honest, we don't really need 3 houses, if I got to be brutally honest. And I may not be the nice councillor now, but saying that, I think what we obviously do need is the respite centre for you. So I don't think selling the land for 3 houses is a benefit to Henley or Harpsden in its neighbourhood plan. The benefit is the respite centre, and so that's the reason you could probably get support for what you're proposing. That's my view. Jodie, have you got any comments on this, Jodie?
Yeah, just in terms of, have you explored other options in terms of sites? Have you looked at other areas? Obviously, at the moment, it's all tied up with bringing forward the northern part of Highlands Farm, and obviously that hasn't been decided as yet. So I just wanted to see if you've looked at anything else.
I'm not sure where else in the Henley area they can look. You are the planning officer. Perhaps you can tell me if you think there is another site that we could look at. I've been looking at Highland Park, or Highland Farm as it was, for many years now. It has the advantage of being, as it were, round the corner from where we are. So it's not a problem for our service users to access. It would have more parking there than we have at the present time, and I think is still close enough to the town to be convenient for all our users. So, I mean, we're not wedded to that. It's just that at the moment, it's the only game in town for us, and the only offer we've had for free donation of the land.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Who would like to speak? Anybody else? Who is the conduit for this? Is it Sir Alan? I would imagine Alan Ponting has something to do with this, Paul.
Yes, I pay tribute to Alan actually keeping his word to me, because would you believe I approached him 10 years ago with a gleam in my eye and said that because I knew he had an interest in Highland Farm, would it be possible one day to consider giving us consideration for a new development site? And he agreed then, and I've been holding his feet to the fire ever since, and he's come good.
Oh.
Would you like to speak, Alan?
No, I'm happy to hear that.
He's got another 10 minutes yet, Alan.
I thought we could get off early, couldn't we?
Okay. Does anybody else have a question for Paul?
No. I think Paul should, Stefan here, I think Paul should just carry on praising other members of the community going forward. Paul, you haven't mentioned Harpsden at the moment. I think you should. Kester is here on the call, so I think a dollop of praise towards Kester wouldn't go amiss.
Well, okay. Kester knows I have infinite admiration for him, taking on the thankless task of being chairman of Harpsden and fighting all these land-grabbing developers, as he's done so well for so long.
Yes.
And how will you replace him?
And actually, Kester donated Highlands Park to Henley because it's now a voting constituency in Henley. So we have everything to thank Kester for.
I didn't know
Okay, right. I think we've had a very enjoyable half an hour. Does anybody else have any other questions? Paul, do you want to make another statement at all? Serious now.
No, I mean, I don't think this is complicated. I think
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. I just hope the planets stay aligned in the way that I think they do, because I do think this is a once in a generation opportunity for us to leverage the asset we have and get something better for the community out of it.
I would say something like this is unfortunately all to do with timing, though, isn't it? That could be the bigger the problem. But anyway, that's for the future to look into. Okay, thanks for your time, Paul, this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you for yours.
You don't have to stay with us. You can leave if you wish to, or you can go and watch us on YouTube.
Very good.
You're going to leave.
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot, Paul. Thank you.
Thank Paul.
Alex, are you on your own tonight to give your presentation?
I am.
You are, okay. I'm quite happy to start straight away if everybody else is, unless Kester wants to finish his dinner.
We're a bit early, Ken.
Yeah, we're a little bit early.
Should we wait? Where are we, time-wise?
5 minutes.
We did say we could run up to half an hour early, though. So 5
Well,
minutes.
yeah, but this is
perfectly reasonable.
35 minutes. Yeah.
It just depends who's watching on YouTube, Lawrence. Should we just have a 5-minute break then? Yeah.
Start again for 8.
Yeah.
Then. Okay.